Okay. I call the 2,387th meeting of the Milwaukee City Council to order. I want to let everyone know that Councilor Stavengeward cannot be here with us tonight, and two of our councilors, Council President Nicodemus and Councilor Massey, are participating via Zoom. This meeting is being held in person at City Hall and by video conference. The public may participate in this meeting by coming to City Hall or joining the Zoom webinar. The meeting is being broadcast live on the city's YouTube channel and Comcast Cable Channel 30 within city limits. There will be opportunities for the public to speak during this meeting. If you would like to address council, you may come to City Hall or participate via Zoom. If you are interested in speaking, please let staff know by filling out a yellow comment card for those at City Hall, and those are out there on the table, or emailing ocr@milwaukeeoregon.gov for those on Zoom. When it is time to take public comments, staff will monitor the comment cards, email inbox, and Zoom participant list and chat. We will take comments in the order they are received and seen. Written comments may be emailed to ocr@milwaukeeoregon.gov. Spanish translation services are available upon request. The public is asked to request translation and other meeting accessibility services at least 48 hours before the meeting. Contamos con servicio de traducción al español cuando sea solicitado. Se pide al público que solicite servicios de traducción y otros servicios de accesibilidad para reuniones por lo menos 48 horas antes de la reunión. Translation services are also available in other languages. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The City of Milwaukee respectfully acknowledges that our community is located on the ancestral homeland of the Clackamas people. In 1855, the surviving members of the Clackamas signed the Willamette Valley Treaty, also known as the Kalapuya Etc. Treaty, with the federal government in good faith. We offer our respect and gratitude to the indigenous people of this land. As I mentioned earlier, Councilor Stavengeward has been excused from this meeting, and due to the absence of council members from tonight's meeting, the second reading of the DLC code change ordinance will be rescheduled to the September 19th regular session meeting. And then we have announcements, things going on around town. Discover how social emotional arts can enhance your life at a hands-on workshop for parents, teachers, and caregivers on Saturday, September 9th, this Saturday, at 10:30 a.m. in the Ledding Library. No registration is required. Join the Milwaukie Museum for 2 free performances of Stefano Iaboni this Saturday, September 9th at 11:30 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. The performances combine magic, juggling, and comedy to create a one-of-a-kind experience. Those happen in the yard behind the Milwaukie Museum, and it's perfect weather for that right now. The Milwaukie Poetry Series kicks off its 17th season with a reading by Richard Lannert on Wednesday, September 13th from 6 to 9:30 p.m. at the Ledding Library. His poems have appeared in numerous journals, and he was the music editor of Stereophile magazine from 1987 to 1996. You can attend the reading in person at the library or watch it live on the Ledding Library's YouTube channel. The Fall Author Series kicks off at the Ledding Library on Wednesday, September 20th at 6 p.m. with Elizabeth Fournier. Elizabeth works to help individuals access sustainable, meaningful, and affordable burials and funerals. She is the author of The Green Burial Guidebook. Join the Milwaukie Environmental Stewards Group at their annual Sustainability Fair on Saturday, September 23rd from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. in the parking lot at Main Street in Harrison. That's the farmer's market lot. The event will include a styrofoam recycling opportunity, food and beverage vendors, local sustainable products, activities, speakers, and more. For more about these events and others, visit the city's homepage at milwaukeeoregon.gov or call 503-786-7555. I would add one other event, which is, it's now September, which means the volunteer work parties in Minthorn Springs wetland will resume. Usually they're on the second Saturday. This month they're actually on the third Saturday, so that's Saturday, September 16th. Those are a joint project of the Milwaukie Parks Foundation and the Wetlands Conservancy, and they run from 10 a.m. to noon. And for those who aren't familiar with where, like people are like, where Minthorn, what's that? It is the area across 37th behind Milwaukie Marketplace. There's a great wetland in there. It's a great place to watch birds, among other things, and beavers. And so you park at Milwaukie Marketplace near the Planet Fitness and walk across 37th, and you will find volunteers there on Saturday the 16th, but you can also walk there anytime. There's a path there, and it's open to the public. So with that, I think we're done with announcements, and I will move on to the Middle School Teacher of the Year Award and invite Mr. Dix to come forward. So this spring, right around the end of school, we all saw Mr. Dix on the KGW getting an award. Gather he was surprised. And some of his students are here to honor, to support him as he's recognized today. We have a little proclamation we'll read at the end. But first, we wanted to try to show one of the videos. So we'll see if it works. Mr. Stauffer was having a little bit of trouble getting it to work earlier, but we're going to try. And I will note, this is a longer video, and it's a lovely video. We're probably just going to show like 2 minutes of it. We're not going to show the whole 6 minutes.
That works for me.
Okay. That, in which we get to see Mr. Dix rap. Yeah.
Brazo.
Rise up!
Roots in the dirt, down deep in the soil. I bottomed out where the pressure turns beast into oil. But you pull yourself up via branches and vines. Before you know it, you got both your hands to the sky, and it's heroic. You're at your lowest, but you finna find a way to flip the script around and bounce up to a higher place. It's a task, but it's something that we're gonna do every single sun and moon until we get that W.
Spending too much time thinking life's a test. Feeling now we always have to be the best. Thinking that the answers are all the same. Life feels like it's a game. We won't remember answers we get wrong. It's the characteristics that make us strong. When we are kind and serve others we see, then we rise up to be the best of me. Best of me.
Rise up, gotta rise up, wake up. Big flex, no, I'm the next up. Gotta be the man, have a plan, so when I grow up, I'll have big bands. Big bands. Like a wizard, I'd be levitating. What? Generating new rhymes, I'd be devastating. Ooh. Swiper, no swiper, golf at bars, no Ghost Rider. No Ghost Rider.
Hit the bottom, bite the dust. People said it might be tough. Think of everything I love. Gives me strength and I rise up. Hit the bottom, bite the dust. People said it might be tough. Think of everything I love. Gives me strength and I rise up.
Rise up on the carpet like Aladdin. People
cut it
mad
off there.
because I succeed with a passion. Feel like
That's gives you a flavor of it. I would recommend everyone to go on the ROW YouTube page, because there's the Shamrock News, which figures prominently. If you could put the slide back up with the text, figures prominently in the nomination of Mr. Dix for this award. That's some of the information from the on Point Credit Union website about the activities, the reason he was chosen for this award. We will give Mr. Dix a few minutes to talk, but I first wanted to invite Gina Benaloga is here with us. She is the chair of the North Clackamas School District Board, and she, I think, wanted to just extend her congratulations as well.
Yes, we want to congratulate all of our teachers in North Clackamas School District, but we are very excited to especially celebrate Mr. Dix. We are, in our district, our core values are equity, relationships, integrity,
Oh, he's got
empowerment, and care. They're right there.
I got the shirt on.
And that's exactly what Mr. Dix embodies at Rao Middle School and creates a beautiful culture there. And I love the last bullet here where it says that he builds his students' confidence at every stage of the creative process. His students have helped him apply for grants, including one that provided $4,000 for the school library. With his encouragement, students blossom, starring in his videos, as you saw, finding community, which is so important, and taking on new challenges. And that's just a beautiful thing, and we're very excited to celebrate him and to congratulate Mr. Dix and Rao Middle School.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Appreciate that.
So I will read the proclamation, but if you'd like to say anything to the people watching or the people in the room before I do that.
Yeah, I really appreciate this community a lot. I started working here at Rao probably like the 2011, 2012 school year. And I remember the first time leaving the building and being like, there is no way I'm ever stepping foot in that school ever again. I was a substitute teacher and it was a wild day. And then like someone was like on a desk throwing pencils at me and someone like voodoo cursed me in their notebook. And all these years later, I'm still going back every single day. And I really appreciate it. It's a community thing. Like some of my students are here. That $4,000 grant, it's the NCEF, and they have hooked up my classroom so much. So we have so much love for the NCEF at our school, at our district. And
For those people watching, that's North Clackamas Education Foundation.
yes,
Yep.
and they have, I would not have half the program I have if they had not helped us out at the very beginning of the program. So I want to give them a lot of love, and it's fun to just watch it build. And we got a member of season 10 Shamrock News here today, so we're just gonna keep on going and keep on churning out episodes and everything like that.
So I found part of season 9 online, but not all of it. Did it not all?
All of it should be on.
Okay.
All of season 9 should be on there. There might be the last 2 episodes might not be there, but yeah, we hit our 300th episode last year in June,
Wow.
which is a lot. So 300 episodes. We're like The Simpsons now. But yeah, I appreciate y'all having me out. I appreciate the love that I got once I got the award. I appreciate the love that I got before that, and I just appreciate being around students who really care about their community and who have a vested interest in trying to make their school community and their Milwaukie community a place that is accepting of everybody in all walks of life and different personalities and lifestyles. And so I love going to work every single day, and a lot of it is because of the people that are surrounding me. So thank you guys.
Well, thank you for. I love watching I watched Shamrock videos even pre-COVID. The Shamrock News. I always thought they were great. I did want to give the other counselors an opportunity to say something, especially because we have an educator on our council. So, Council President Nicodemus, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. Hey, Lucas.
What's up, Desi? How you doing?
Suffering through COVID back to school. You know how that is.
Yeah.
But I wanted to just take a moment and express, my sincere gratitude and congratulations to you for this award. I know it's very well deserved, and I know you personally, and we share a lot of old students, and I know you have outstanding dedication and commitment to education, and your passion for education is extremely evident. And I just once again want to say congratulations and thank you for being part of the Rao community.
Appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. And thanks for taking care of all those kids over at Wickham.
Okay.
Thanks.
Hope you feel better, ma'am.
Okay, and then Counselor Massey, would you like?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Dix, thank you for all that you've done for the students at Rao Middle School. I admire teachers. I've never been a school teacher, but I was married to a school teacher, and so I know it's sort of an all-consuming endeavor. And those who do it well really have to give everything to it, and I see that in you and what you do. So congratulations on this. I know it's not the last that we will hear from you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Counselor
Yes,
Roddy?
Mr. Dix, I really appreciate you being here and the hard work and dedication you give to the students. I got a child myself. I'm a new dad, 13-month-old, and now I got a bunch of good teaching videos to show him. I mean, you're
Yeah.
literally empowering our children, and you know it's a cliche that our children are the future, but it's an important one. It's one that I think we're starting to lose track of a little bit. But educators like yourself are what keeps us grounded and reminds us that they are our future, and it's important to empower them now and not wait till they have to fight. So I really appreciate what you do and continue to be the guiding light. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I love the empower them now and not wait for it. I think that's a really important aspect of it. So yeah, I'm right there with you. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I will just proceed to read the proclamation. Whereas middle school-aged children in Milwaukie are served by the North Clackamas School District's Wilbur D. Rao Middle School, and whereas Rao Middle School teacher Lucas Dix has been named a 2023 On Point Community Credit Union Educator of the Year, and whereas Mr. Dix has served as an educator in the North Clackamas School District at Rao Middle School for 13 years, where he has focused on educating the whole child using an equity mindset to implement innovative techniques that are result-oriented. And whereas Mr. Dix has been recognized as an outstanding educator who builds his students' confidence at every stage of the creative process, and with his encouragement, students blossom, starring in videos, finding community, and taking on new challenges. And whereas the City of Milwaukie is proud of Mr. Dix's achievements and appreciates his dedication and work on behalf of this city's students. Now, therefore, I, Lisa Beatty, Mayor of the City of Milwaukie, a municipal corporation in the County of Clackamas in the state of Oregon, do hereby recognize Rao Middle School teacher Lucas Dix for dedication to the students and community of Milwaukie and congratulate him for being named a 2023 On Point Educator of the Year.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And I should have said earlier that it's unfortunate that Councilor Stavengord couldn't join us today because she was part of drafting this proclamation and gathering some of these students, and so I know she's sorry to have missed this today, but we really appreciate all you've done for our community.
Thank you. It means a lot.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Next, we have a second proclamation on Service Month, and it involves representatives of the Milwaukie area Elks, Lions, and Rotary clubs. I believe Alexa from the Rotary Club is going to do the presenting here.
Hi, Mayor Beatty and councilors, online and present. My name is Alexa Morris, and I'm the president of the Rotary Club of Milwaukie. And I'm excited to be here tonight to introduce Service Month Proclamation as a way to encourage community members to volunteer in our community and recognize service clubs doing great work in our community. I'm here tonight with the Milwaukie Portland Elks Club, the Milwaukie Lions Club, the Rotary Clackamas Sunrise Club, who meets in Milwaukie, and the Rotary Club of Milwaukie. And I'd like folks that are here tonight representing those clubs to raise their hand. Yay, very exciting. And I'd like to also recognize that each of our club's presidents are all women right now, which is pretty cool. So that's an important note. These groups represent serving our veterans, serving kids in our schools, and providing food. All these actions, big and small, from the Milwaukie service clubs add up to make a really big difference. And I hope tonight that we will inspire folks through this proclamation to reach out to these service clubs to get involved in their community.
Great. Thank you. Well, I will read the proclamation, and I would just say all of these groups, I think, at least I know the Rotary and the Elks are active on Facebook, so that's one way to find them if you want to see what they're doing and see how you can tune in. Whereas service clubs are the heart and soul of vibrant communities, helping residents old and young in dozens of ways that enhance day-to-day life, such as feeding the hungry, providing clothing, awarding scholarships, assisting our city and county. And whereas the Rotary Club of Milwaukie, Milwaukie Portland Elks, Milwaukie Lions Club, and Clackamas Sunrise Rotary Club are examples of service organizations in which volunteers from our community give their time every day. And whereas those critical services have impacted a wide variety of needs, including hunger, literacy, sight, hearing, environment, education, personal hygiene, and other life-altering services, and the efforts of those volunteers should be acknowledged. Now, therefore, I, Lisa Beatty, Mayor of Milwaukie, Mayor of the City of Milwaukie, a municipal corporation in the County of Clackamas in the state of Oregon, do hereby proclaim September 2023 to be Service Month and encourage all citizens to recognize our local Rotary, Elks, Lions, and other service clubs in Milwaukie for outstanding contributions to the well-being of our community, and further encourage all Milwaukie residents to volunteer in some way in the community for a few hours this month. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
And yeah, we really appreciate you guys all coming out. And I will say we have another proclamation, and then we have a bunch of other things on our agenda. So those who don't want to stay do not need to stay. Some of you probably just came for one or the other, but these are public meetings. You can stay. I'm predicting 9 p.m. So, okay, thank you. And National Preparedness Month proclamation. We have one of our youngest.
What's that? You can if you'd like to, but I kind of,
He can be there.
You can certainly try, but I feel like he's going to kind of...
hang out with Dad in person?
That's okay.
I love that. That sounds excellent.
Yeah. He's our youngest presenter ever.
We'll just try to wrap it up before he starts providing commentary.
Okay. So this is Dan Harris, our Events and Emergency Management Coordinator, presenting on National Preparedness Month.
Thank you very much, Mayor Beatty, Council, both here and at home. My name is Dan Harris. This is my small associate, Owen, and we're here to talk a little bit about National Preparedness Month. I was here with the council a few weeks ago working on the city's natural hazard mitigation plan. And as with mitigation planning, preparedness is something that we can all do at home. I'm going to keep it very brief and just say that the best time to prepare for an emergency, or to start preparing for an emergency, is a year ago. The second best time is today. And whether that means making sure that you have a gallon of water for everyone in your household, and there are a lot of good, affordable ways to do that, or making sure that there are non-perishable food items that you can prepare without cooking in your home pantry. There are a lot of great steps that can be taken to prepare your family to be more resilient in the event of a natural or other disaster. I don't want to take all the air out of the room, so I will just say that ready.gov is a great resource for that, as is milwaukeeoregon.gov/emergency-prep.
Okay, great. Thank you. Whereas the month of September is recognized by emergency responders and public safety agencies nationwide as a time to actively promote emergency preparedness in our communities through planned activities, events, and public awareness campaigns. And whereas the theme of this year's National Preparedness Month is preparing for older adults, recognizing the unique vulnerabilities of older adults to natural disasters, and reminds us all to be better prepared to protect ourselves and our neighbors against natural disasters. And whereas investing in personal and community preparedness can reduce injuries, fatalities, and economic devastation in our community and in our nation. And whereas during September, the City of Milwaukie urges residents to prepare themselves for emergencies by assembling an emergency go kit, including 3 days of water, medications, and other emergency supplies, by enrolling in communications platforms to receive emergency alerts, and by learning about regional and statewide evacuation procedures, which you can find at www.ready.gov/September. Now, therefore, I, Lisa Beatty, Mayor of the City of Milwaukie, a municipal corporation in the County of Clackamas in the state of Oregon, do hereby proclaim September 2023 to be National Preparedness Month in Milwaukie. All right. Thank you, Owen. Okay. All right. So, we actually got through that faster than I expected. Okay. Community comments. This is the part of the agenda during which council will hear community member comments regarding city business that is not already on the agenda. Before we begin, is there any follow-up from the August 15th community comments, Ms. Ober?
There are none.
Okay. And I wanted to clarify a couple of things. As noted earlier, the item on the Design and Landmarks Committee is being postponed to the September 19th meeting in the hope that all council can be here. In any event, that is a item for which the public testimony has closed, so we cannot take public testimony on that. We will be hearing from staff on the work plan for the planning department, and that is an item on the agenda for which we will take public comment. So if you're here to comment on that, that would be the time for that. If you are here to comment about anything else, then this is your time to comment. So do we have anybody, before I go read all the script, do we have anybody who wants to testify during community comments?
Mayor Beatty, I see no hands raised in Zoom, and there's no email in the OCR box, and I have no comment cards.
Okay. If you're here to comment on the other item, there are yellow cards out on the table, and you want to grab one of those and fill it out. And with that, I think we will skip the script about community comments, and Laura got here. Oh, consent agenda. Sorry, Laura's early. Consent agenda. Tonight's consent agenda includes minutes of the City Council August 1st, 2023 work session, August 1st, 2023 regular session, August 8th, 2023 site visit, and August 8th, 2023 study session. A resolution authorizing a contract amendment with Diversified Abilities to provide janitorial services for the duration of the initial 5-year term for an amount not to exceed $279,317.15 per year. Does any member of council wish to remove a consent agenda item?
No.
I'm not hearing any, so I will entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve consent agenda as presented.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say no. None heard. The consent agenda passes unanimously. And now we will move on to item 7A, the Planning Department Work Plan, and presented by Planning Manager Laura Weigel.
I remember I've got that.
I'll just bring them up and then you can decide to see. Here they are.
What?
Good evening, counselors.
Good evening.
Hello, Mayor Beatty. Hello, Counselor Massey and Nicodemus online. It's nice to be here tonight. It's last time we were here, it was sweltering outside, and I was really happy to be here with you all tonight. It's one of the most beautiful evenings, but that's okay. I'm still happy to be here with you all tonight. I'm here to talk about the Planning Department's work program, and it's the same kind of work program that we've been bringing to you all since, I don't know, 2019, 2020. And so I was just going to the reason I'm bringing it to you is because there's been change in council, and we have different council goals, and I just thought it'd be a really good time to bring this back to you all and make sure that we're still all on the same page, because I realized I've been here almost 3 years to the day this week, so it's super exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really,
It's been a lovely
truly.
time to be here. I've really enjoyed it here, and basically this is the work plan I was handed when I walked in the door, and so I'm happy to say that we've actually gotten quite a bit of it done. And so I think what I will do is to pull it up, Scott, just as the easiest way. I didn't do a PowerPoint, but I thought it would just be easiest if we use the actual work plan to go through some of the things that we want to talk about. And really the idea tonight is just to make sure that what we're doing is still in alignment with what this council is expecting and wanting to accomplish for the city. And so we just want to make sure, as we're moving into kind of these next work tasks, that everybody's on the same page. Just scroll up and down. Okay, cool. Thank you. All right. Okay. So let's see. Under Section A, which is the grayed out area, can everybody see that? Everybody at home can see it? Counselor Massey and Nicodemus, I just want to make sure everybody can see it.
Is that the same that's in our packet?
It is the same that's in your packet. Okay, great. So complete, I won't go through those because you all have already been through those with us mostly. Underway, as you all know, we've got the transportation system plan, the climate-friendly equitable communities code work, the neighborhood hubs phase 2, which we're in now, and we're actually getting ready to go out to the community in October, and we'll be coming to you all in December to talk to you about where we are with that project and what we've learned. Then we've got the biannual housekeeping code amendments that Vera has been bringing on a regular basis to you all. We've got something that you're probably not as familiar with. It's the Title 17 update, the land division code. And what we realized, and the reason that we're doing that is because we can kind of just do it behind the scenes as staff, go through that, try to understand what we need to improve, and there's not a lot of public engagement that we have to do that. It's really an exercise in understanding the code. And the reason that we're doing that initially is because we realized that part of the provisions through the tree code was trying to make sure that during the land division process that we were protecting important trees. And we're not sure that we're doing that right now. So we thought, you know what, we need to go and look at the code and make sure, or see if we can make updates to the code to see if we are in fact protecting the trees. So then when we dug into that code, I think you all know that we also have this code fix list. It's a very long list of things, and so we went in and we realized that there were some things with the Title 17 that were a little in conflict. For example, we have clear and objective standards, but then we make folks go through a type 3 in a lot of cases. So anyway, we're just going in, we're cleaning up that code. So we're gonna bring that to you. We have a work session with the Planning Commission in November, and we will bring that back to you once we work through the Planning Commission. So that's one thing. Then we've also got the bicycle parking standards. You know what, we started that process with the Planning Commission and put a pause on that until the climate-friendly equitable communities rulemaking process has come to a standing still point, and then we'll bring that back to you. And then the natural resources assessment and code update, that has been on the department's work plan, and so that's always was projected to come after we did the downtown design review code update, and then once we got hubs underway. And so what we've been doing is developing, going through, understanding what it is that we need to look at as part of the comprehensive plan, as part of our code. And so we will be bringing, and we've been doing that for the last couple of months. It's a pretty complicated assessment, so understanding what's working and what isn't and what we're trying to accomplish with that. So we're on the docket to come to you all at the next city council meeting and kind of show you and talk to you all where we are in kind of understanding that project. So that is coming to you. And I'll take a pause here and just ask if you have any questions about those couple of things, or if you want me to just keep going.
We've kind of adopted a policy of waiting till the end to ask
Yes.
questions.
I remember this.
But,
I'd forgotten. Thank
but
you.
I think you're smart to actually break it up. So, are there questions from anyone on up to that point? I guess I did want to know more about what the Natural Resources Code was, but if you're coming next time, then we'll learn about that next time.
Yep.
Anybody else?
I guess
Yeah.
the bicycle parking standards.
Yeah.
Like what can you give
So
a-
what happened is when the CFIC rules came into play and they removed parking mandates, so we needed to remove parking mandates throughout the city.
Right.
The problem is that our bicycle parking standards are tied to our parking requirement standards. So if we don't have any parking requirements, then we kind of don't have any bicycle parking requirements. So we needed to fix that. So we decided while we were waiting on the transportation system plan to kick off that we were going to go in and talk about bicycle parking. So we've done a bunch of research to try to understand best practices throughout the region. And we had gone to Planning Commission and had a work session with Planning Commission. And then we found out that the rulemaking process was considering changing the bicycle parking requirements in the equitable CFEC and the Climate-Friendly Equitable Communities Code. So we just put a pause in it for a minute to make sure that we knew what the state rules were going to be before we started talking about what our own rules would be. So that's kind of where we are in that process right now. So we'll know better. I think that those rules will hopefully be nailed down by the end of the year, and so we'll have a better idea then.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Counselor Massey or Nicodemus, any questions to this point?
None at this point, thank you.
Okay.
Same.
Okay.
Okay, great. So then I will dive into the future projects. Okay, so as you can see on this work forecast, let me scroll so everybody can see it. Okay, so you'll see things in a little bit different colors, but essentially this order is the same order as it's always been, with a couple of little minor adjustments that I wanted to talk to you all about. One is we had initially thought that we were going to do the flood protection, go in and update Title 18 along with the natural resources. But because we did that update through the state in 2021, we feel like our regulations are in really good shape and they follow the Metro Model Code. And then also we're getting new regulations coming out of the state and FEMA in the next, say, probably 2026. So we thought our regulations are doing pretty well now and that we're in compliance, that we put a pause on that and bring that back when we actually know what the new regulations are going to be from FEMA. So that's still a point that we can talk about if we feel like we need to go in and update it. We're just going to have to update it again in like 2026 when those regulations come out. So that's why I kind of put that in brown. I'm just saying, I don't know that we need to be doing that right now. We might want to wait. So that's one thing that's changed. The other thing that we've been talking about is, so you'll see these other things. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 new items for the future projects. 3 of those come from the housing production strategy that we're required to do by the state, right? So number 3, the housing implementation, evaluate incentives for affordable housing. Number 6, increase capacity in the high-density residential zones. Number 8 is develop a pre-approved plan set for ADUs and middle housing. So we incorporated those as we're required to do, so we wanted to be sure that this work plan reflected that. And then 2 new things. One is potentially, don't know that we're going to propose it, don't know, we'll come and talk to you all about it based on what we learned through the Hubs project. We've been talking a little bit about maybe having a phase 3 of the hubs work if we feel like it would be a good idea and it's something that you all agreed on, and if we think it would be useful to kind of like, I don't know, continue to put some good focus and energy on the hubs. And so, but that's not set in stone. We don't know if we're going to actually even bring it to you, but we wanted to alert you to the fact that we might, because we're talking about potentially making some boundary adjustments to the mixed use area along 32nd and Olson, because the boundary is kind of strange, and we're not fixing that in the hubs project, so we might want to talk about that. Not sure. We also were talking about potentially bringing to the table this idea of doing a couple of area plans. And those two focus areas might be the trolley trail area and then also the Chapel Theater area. And the idea behind that is to kind of build on the momentum of kind of really focusing on those areas that already kind of have a good little commercial area, and then somehow seeing if we can, as a city, do something to kind of, I don't know if it's a streetscape plan, if it's banners that we hang, something to kind of say to people in that area, into the city, these are places that we see lots of things happening, and we as a city kind of want to partner with you and show you that we are behind this and putting some energy into that. So that's just one idea that we're floating around. Whether or not we actually do that, I have no idea yet. And then also talking about whether or not our home occupation standards are good enough or not good enough. We have pretty good home occupation standards, but whether or not we want to broaden those at all. We've been hearing from some folks that people would like the opportunity to do a little bit more in their homes, and so maybe we can talk about that a little bit more. So those are just potential ideas that we're going to talk about in the future, but I don't know. We'll probably bring those ideas, or whatever version of those ideas that we land on, back to you sometime in December or maybe earlier in the year. So that's one thing that we may or may not add, depending on how you all feel about it and what we all decide is a good idea. And then just one little thing that I had to add to the very end when everything else is done. It's at the very bottom, so I don't know when we'll get to that. At the very end of doing all these other things is looking at the business and industrial and manufacturing zone updates, codes. Ours are super, super outdated, and we really struggle sometimes to look at the uses and understand the differences and why we're allowing certain things in some places and why we're not allowing them in others. And anyway, so we just want to take a deeper dive look at that because they haven't been updated in a long time. So I added that at the very bottom when everything else is actually gotten through. And so the rest of the items for the future in order, and I will just try to keep it to like 2 sentences. I won't get into it too much. But sign code update, it's been on the list for a long time. From what I understand, this is before my time, there were some concerns around electronic signs and where they were allowed in the city and kind of regulating them better. So the idea was that we would go into that code and take a look at that code and see if there were needed any adjustments to that code. Then if you go down to number 4 is the potential parks and institution zones and the community service analysis. That came straight out of the comprehensive plan and looking whether or not we needed to create a different kind of zone for our parks and institutions. And I also think it's a really good time to look at that because of the new regulations regarding not allowing mandating parking. And a lot of our community service use code is focused on mitigating impacts to the neighborhood. And one of those main things that we're usually trying to mitigate is parking, but we're not allowed to require parking anymore. So I think we need to take a look and see whether or not there's a different way to look at that, not just through parking, but how we're managing overflow and folks in the neighborhood. So I think it's a really good time to go, not only because we need to do it anyway, because for the parks and institution zones, but then also understanding what that means through the CSU. And maybe even the parks and institutions can stay in the community service use zone if we take a different look at that overlay. So that's one thing. Then we've got the Willamette River, the Willamette Greenway, and it's very specific in the comp plan what we're supposed to do with that. We're supposed to establish 2 different tiers of review depending on where you are. And then one problem that we really have is that we don't have clear and objective standards for housing. For instance, right now, we have a new development that's coming in on Lava Drive that's 14 units and would be allowed by right if it weren't for the Willamette Greenway. So they're having to come in and go through a type 3 process when they're actually following our code. And they're 450 feet from the river, so there were never any views there, probably won't be any views there. So we just need to be looking at the standards for residential development. We also need to look at the boundary, because I'm not really sure about the history of the boundary, but I don't know when the last time y'all looked at the boundary, but it's kind of a wild boundary. And I think we really need to take a look at that. Then the next one is the new town center plan. We have an existing town center plan that was adopted in 1997 that was part of establishing our town center through Metro Regional Plan 2040. So that's really outdated as is, because it was 1997. And then we've got the downtown and riverfront plan, which is adopted in 1997. So that plan's, in 2015. So we kind of want to try to take a look at that and see if we can consolidate that and just bring that up to date and have a larger conversation about the downtown. And then we've got the historic resources inventory. I think we all know about that. And then the urban growth management agreement, prepare and adopt a new agreement with the county. It's funny, when I first got here, I did a little bit of work on that, and from what I understood at the time, this was like maybe in 2021, that the county wasn't really in the space of wanting to update urban growth boundary agreement, so we kind of put that on pause. And so it's just kind of continued to be on pause until we kind of decide that we want to, number one, take that back up, and number two, have a good partner in the county to go in and update that agreement. And so that is kind of the order of events, and I know that you'll see that the timeline is now out to 2027. It's been an interesting time, obviously. One thing that I didn't mention is that, we have current planning, which takes up a lot of our time, right? We have quite a bit of stuff, and so that's pretty unpredictable. And we know, when I first started, the first couple of years, we had a lot of really big development projects, right? We had Coho, we had Henley, we had Dogwood Station came in. We've had some big projects. And while we're not having as many big projects in our queue right now, we're still having land use review applications, land applications on a regular basis, and we're kind of on track to have the same number. Yes, ma'am?
Can I just add something to
Yes,
that?
please.
When I got here, we had none of these. So what she is just saying is this is not that much, is quadruple what we were facing the first year I was here. So I just want to point out to anybody who's listening, for the planning staff, that you have a lot of land use that's actually still coming through, and we have a lot of planning items just because things are changing all the time. So I'm more saying that because Adam wasn't, sorry, Counselor, you weren't here at the time, and I just wanted you to know kind of the amount of growth and density over the last 6 years has been substantial, and we're still seeing that kind of density coming through her team. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So I just wanted to bring that up, and you know, because you're being planning commissioners, I know there's planning commissioners, former planning commissioners in this room, so you know what comes through planning commission and how much time that can take, right? So, and then we've also got state mandated stuff that we didn't have on the work plan in the first place, stuff that came that we didn't know was coming, that we've had to incorporate. So that is incorporated. So. And then things just always, they take longer than you think they're going to take, just through the nature of the process of going through these things and working through the planning commission and doing our community engagement and then coming to city council. And so this is my best educated guess at trying to create a work plan that I think we can get through. But I have the caveat is I still don't know what's coming from the state, and I don't know how long things take sometimes, and we also have development review. So this is kind of like my best guess of what we're going to get through in the next four and a half years. And so with that, I guess the question to you all is there anything missing? Is there anything on this list that you all have been thinking about that's not on this list? And then two, is the order correct? Like, are we still on the same course, or do we need to be having a conversation about having a different course? And so those are the two questions I will leave you with, and I'm happy to answer any questions you all may have.
Okay, before we get to answering Laura's questions, did anybody need any clarifying information from Laura on any of the foregoing? Okay. Seeing nobody chiming in. I think we decided we were not going to vote on this tonight because we were going to wait for Councilor Savageword to come back, but I do want to talk about it, and I think we have one person who wants to testify about it. So, is there anybody who's chomping at the bit to start on this and answer Laura's questions? Okay, I will take my stab at it then. I can't think of anything that's missing. I mean, there are always things, like you said, the state comes up with things. But I would completely reorder this list. I will tell you, first off, the sign code, it's funny to me that it's finally risen to number 1 potentially on the list, because I have been clamoring for revisiting the sign code since, I don't know, 2008 maybe.
It's finally here.
I saw those electronic signs. I mean, we did do some targeted amendments to keep those electronic signs from being bigger, to keep them from being more. I think the whole sign code needs a revision, top to soup to nuts. But I don't think it's. I find it hysterical that I'm saying this, but I don't find it the highest priority. I mean, the damage has been done when it comes to those electronic signs. I can't imagine we're going to make people take them down. They're going to be grandfathered in. So to me, I'm just going to go through this list. To me, that is less important than historic preservation.
And Mayor Beatty, can I just say, I don't disagree with you. When we were talking about doing the sign code, we don't think it's a priority either, but it was in this order on this list, and so I wanted to be sure of that, and I know that it was an issue, so I would concur with you that that actually isn't a top priority. We don't have that many problems with our sign code. Like, it probably needs to be redone, but it doesn't cause staff or applicants any grief at this point.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I remember looking at the Lake Oswego sign code, which got taken all the way to the Supreme Court, and thinking they had a much better sign code, and why didn't we just copy that, since it had been challenged all the way to the Supreme Court. But, I mean, that was 15 years ago or something. Who knows? Neighborhood hubs phase 3. I mean, we can talk about that when the time comes. The one thing on this list that I do think is a priority that I would place above historic preservation code is what your number 3, the evaluate incentives for affordable housing. I do think that's a conversation we should have sooner rather than later. Potential parks and institution zone, it seems to me, why do we want to do that until we know where we stand with the Parks District? The Willamette Greenway, we have revised that code so many times. At least 3, we did a major rewrite, and I was looking it up on our Q code, and unfortunately it doesn't give the years of adoption, but we did a major rewrite maybe 12 years ago, and we've done a couple of amendments since then. To me, that is low on the totem pole low on the priority list of things we should do. It is, I agree, I mean, it is called for in our comp plan, but so are all the rest of these. So the capacity in the HDR zone, I think we need to give that a few years to see how it plays out. I think we're in a time of high interest rates and, unsure construction things, and we know a lot of things are kind of in a holding pattern, but I think there is, as I understand it, is there still a project proposed for 42nd? Is there a multifamily project proposed for 42nd just off Harrison? They've had a pre-app, I know.
Is the cottage cluster? Yeah.
The one behind the law firm, it's a cottage cluster? I thought it was going to be an apartment building. On the 42nd, where the new sidewalks are, and remember we couldn't build the sidewalk through, and I thought the pre-app reads like an apartment building, I will say that. Anyway, I mean, if something like that happens in the HDR zone, then that opens eyes to other people in the HDR zone. Oh, look, we can do that. So, I mean, I think we need to let that percolate a little bit and see what happens before we jump into trying to change it. Town center plan, I mean, I hear you that those are completely out of date and need some reconciliation, but again, I don't see that as a high priority. Urban growth management agreement, at some point, maybe this council will make annexation a priority, in which case that jumps up because council has chosen that as a goal, but at this point, it's properly low on the list, I think. I have taken a page from, I think we need to move preservation up to like number 2. And I've taken a page from the council president in writing my thoughts down so that I don't miss any of them. So I'm going to read a little bit here. Later tonight, we're going to hear about the equity study, and the staff report indicates that one of the things that the equity steering committee is discussing as a priority is storytelling around Milwaukee's full history. But in fact, we aren't well equipped to do that because we haven't really looked at that history as a city. The Milwaukie Museum has done a lot of great work, and we've started forging closer ties with the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde, whose people originally inhabited present-day Milwaukie. But updating our historic inventory of locations, and I mean locations, not just structures, is an important step in furtherance of equity principles. At the time the last inventory was done, in the late 1980s, not only were mid-century buildings not eligible for recognition, but it wasn't part of the typical process to recognize where communities of color had lived before. We know we had a number of Japanese families farming in what we now call central Milwaukie, and I've just recently learned there were some Chinese-owned farms as well. Most of the buildings on those properties have been replaced already, but the places themselves could have some sort of recognition through plaques, signage, perhaps street renaming, etc. Similarly, we know the first black-owned bakery in the state was on our main street, but what other history of achievements by Black, Indigenous, or people of color as business persons, teachers, or in other roles in the community are we neglecting out of ignorance? Conducting a thorough revision of our historic inventory and having a community conversation about what our code should do to recognize and, where appropriate, protect such places are logical next steps to being able to do what the equity plan calls for, namely storytelling around Milwaukee's full history. So that's my view. I think historic preservation should be the first thing or potentially the second thing after the evaluate incentives for affordable housing. I invite others to speak to this. You will also have an opportunity at the next meeting if you choose to wait, because like I said, we're not going to vote tonight.
I'd like to speak to that. I do agree that the evaluate incentives for affordable housing should probably be the top of the list. The way I look at it, I see that the housing one should be moved up because we're in a housing crisis, and I think that should have priority over some of these other ones. And kind of here's my thought, and maybe people may or may not follow this, but the way I see this, I see potential for affordable housing as well as looking at the business, industrial, and manufacturing zone updates as potential for sparking economic development in a way by updating those codes or the zones. So I kind of look at it like, okay, so we have our 3 goals, but then we have this planning work plan that has some of the other things that all of us counselors are concerned about that could be worked on now that wouldn't have to wait for it to be made a goal. Like, again, the affordable housing piece, right? There's a lot on here that I think could be, I'm not saying all of them be all of the affordable housing piece, because I know some of them take time, like the mayor mentioned the high-density residential zones, the capacity. I understand her issue with that one. But the other ones, like the incentives should be first. The developed pre-approved plans should be coming up. Yeah, though, I mean, those, because the middle housing stuff is what we're missing, right? So why would we not get pre-approved plans put in place for ADUs and middle housing? Because we don't have a lot of land in the city, but we have a lot of infill. So having those plans available, that's going to potentially lead to more homeowners wanting to build ADUs. And if one thing has told us, homeowners as your tenant are least likely to evict in times of crisis than rental companies and property management companies. So that, I just look at it as a domino effect kind of with that. So since we are in a housing crisis, I feel like those should be bumped up. And I do see historic resources more of like in the middle, in my opinion. But I also see the business industrial manufacturing zone should be bumped. And again, this is just because I'm just thinking affordability, economic development. We have some things that could potentially move those forward without it being necessarily a goal. So maybe that's what we need to put the planning focus on.
And Councilor Cosarabati, I will just as a note about the ADUs, the plan sets, pre-approved plan sets. We know the DLCD is working on those, and so we were kind of trying to wait a little bit until we had something to go from, so that we weren't starting from scratch, so that other communities, the state's doing it. So we've got it on we talked about doing it in 2026 as part of the housing production strategy, but just a note about that. If those came out sooner, like if we had something to work from sooner, we could move it up depending on when it comes out. We were just hoping to let some of the work be done by the state before we jump into it. That was the only reason that that's on hold or we thought that 2026 would be a better time for it. Just as a side note about that.
Okay. Yeah, and that one, I'd probably put them in like the top 5, I would say. But I think the number 1 should be the incentives for affordable housing.
And the business, industrial, manufacturing, have we had things that wanted to come in that couldn't?
No.
Have we turned down businesses?
A few really strange things that where we said this maybe isn't the best spot for you. But we would just need to do an analysis of that. But no, it hasn't been that we're turning away things because all of the zoning's pretty well, there are a lot of industries here. So we're really blessed in that we have a pretty good economic development engine as part of that. But we've had little things, it's really the nuances in the code where we have to kind of force things into a place that looks like this, even though it's not really that. So it's more, in all honesty, it's more of trying to clean it up as much for us and for the applicant to understand and to think about what we want to be allowing or what we don't want to be allowing, and having that conversation. That's kind of the point of it.
We did do some of that during my time on Planning Commission. There was some that was mandated by Metro about the M zone or something.
Yeah.
But that led to kind of a broader, conversation about what do we want to allow and sort of what are industries that have nuisance values, either fumes or noise or, blah, blah, blah.
It's just been a while since we've looked at it. It's really antiquated. It looks, you can even, it just doesn't fit in with the rest of our code at this point, so.
Okay.
I also have a question on the greenway. Greenways, aren't they normally meant not to be built on? Right?
Yeah, but you have to allow some things to be built, right? So there are lots of properties that are in the Willamette River Greenway.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
That's because we currently allow that, right?
Yes.
'Cause we currently allow that to be built. But
Yes.
Technically, greenways are meant to conserve what's there and not to.
It's meant to, some, partially yes, and then partially for those folks that do live in the designated greenway, they still get to have the use of their property.
On their property, but not okay, so can somebody go and buy part of that? If they were to sell that property, somebody else can buy it and then build it, right? And build on top of it? So, are they currently on a greenway right now? Like their
They're
property's on the
on the
greenway.
greenway boundary. So there's a
On the boundary.
boundary. There's
Yeah,
a
right.
boundary, and they're within that boundary.
Because we had a similar issue with Waverly, didn't we? That was one of the variances they
They
needed.
were in the greenway, so,
Greenway.
but they went through a plan development process, so we would have had to go through a type 3 anyway. But one of them, yes, one of the variances, I mean, they didn't have to ask for a variance, but they had to go through the greenway boundary. Because, so you can build there, but you have to kind of discuss how you're going to mitigate any impacts to the greenway.
Okay, yeah, that's the key, because I don't want anything to contradict our climate goals and our preservation of, so I'm just curious about that.
Yeah.
I have a
Okay.
question.
Yeah.
Just for my understanding, the housing pieces that we talked about, those 3 different ones, those are at this point required in
Yes.
that schedule. So I just want to make sure everybody knows as we're moving things, those have to stay in that order.
Yeah, and you'll note that I put like a little parentheses after them. So like 3 says 2025, 6 says 20. That's what we committed to the state in our housing production strategy. Yeah.
Right.
So we have to do those.
Yeah.
By then, right?
Well,
By
in each
2025?
of those places, the reason I bring that up is just because part of, we talk about this as an overarching work plan, but the way this really works out is we have sets of information assigned to a planner who then takes it through that whole process. So one planner is going to probably be dedicated through that whole process to those 3 items, just because there's going to be consistency in that. So I just want to make sure as we're thinking about this, we're talking about the who also, not for you all, but
Well, I
on
think
my
about it.
end of
I have
things. I know
names
you
written
do.
by every
I
single
know
one of
you
these, and
do.
I look at their workload, and I'm doing the balancing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. But it's just making sure that we're clear about that the things that can move just don't include those things.
And it's not that we'll be done with them. The 2025 says that when we'll start them.
Right.
But like for the evaluate the incentives for affordable housing, the great thing is I'm so glad I want to do that first too. I'm really, because we already have a really good code. Actually, we had worked on that a little bit. So we have something we can bring out and like we can get through that pretty darn quick, y'all. So that would be great to do that.
And that really was just, again, staff capacity.
Yeah.
So Joseph worked on creating the code. Thank you. It's brilliant. But we haven't had a planner available to prioritize it into their work.
Well, I do think that's the one of them that is, that's the one that is, can move quickly and should, and is, the others to me don't seem ripe. Like we're waiting on the state on the one, and I think we want to see a little bit more what happens in our HDR zones in the other. I mean, we talked about it in the capacity of the, in the housing capacity analysis, or whatever the report was we sent to the state. We said it was a discussion of that, right? We did not commit to any increase in density or whatever. It was a
We said that we
discussion
would
of that.
explore that option.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that we would start the conversation in 2025.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll just point out Councilor Massey's hand is raised.
Okay, Councilor Massey, please.
Yeah, I have a question. For Laura, this this number 9 is just such a simple little 1.5 lines. Historic resources inventory potential code update. I gotta tell you, it looks like a gigantic job.
It is. Because we haven't done it in 35 years. Yeah.
Yeah, the question was for Laura. Do you have any idea of what kind of task this is?
Well, that's a really good question, Councilor Massey, because I think that if we went about doing it the way that we did it 30 years ago, which is one of the ways that Historic Milwaukee Society has been talking about going out and inventorying the housing. If we did it the way that we did it 30 years ago, yes, is it a big undertaking because we have to go out and look at all of the housing stock in the city, and then we have to assign it a score, and we have to then decide, talk to folks and see if they want to be on the list or if they don't want to be on the list. So yes, that is a lot of work. But then there's also the other part of the work, which I think that has been brought up, which is great. I was so glad to hear last time we were here when the mayor of Oregon City and her other capacity as the state historic preservation officer, was talking about new and improved new ways of looking at historic preservation in the state of Oregon, which I think is wonderful. I also think that I don't know how far along that particular set of rules and regulations is on how we would go about doing that as a city. I don't know if there's a way that we would do that work. The work that we did 30 years ago and the work of going through and inventorying, that work we can do. Will it be time consuming? Yes, but that is not that difficult. The other part of the work is the work that, and I, quite frankly, am not even sure that's a planning department task, because that is a much larger conversation about what this city values as historic resources and redefining the way we think about historic resources. And I don't know that that's planning's role. That might be somebody else's role. So I think that this, yes, Councilor Massey, it's a much larger conversation than the one we had 30 years ago, I believe. And I don't know the scope of that. That would have to be something that we would have to sit down and talk about and scope and figure out what we were going to do and what that process would be, because it's much bigger than just a historic building inventory. I see it as kind of two different things in the same stratosphere, but very different.
Well, thank you for that. I certainly want to noodle this one some, because there's a lot of important projects here, and I'm not only just thinking of the need, but the return on investment of time and that kind of thing. So. I don't have any preconceived notions about exactly where it should go, but I just kind of wanted to scope out the project, because it just sounds like it's a big project. Yeah.
I would agree that it's a very large project, and it's not just a planning project. It's probably a larger community conversation.
Thank you.
Council President, did you want to weigh in here? Or do you want to wait till the next meeting?
I'll wait till the next meeting. If I'm being honest, I'm on that COVID. It's my COVID brain. Right now.
Okay, fair enough.
Really.
Fair enough. We agreed we weren't going to vote today anyway, so we do have a member of the public who would like to testify. Is there anything else you'd like to say before I invite her up to testify?
No.
No? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, yeah. Yeah, in the public comment period, we often limit people to 3 minutes, but I'm going to give you 5 minutes. Hopefully that'll be enough
I've
time.
added on a couple thoughts just from the discussion. I want to make sure I hit on some points, but I think I can definitely keep it to 5 minutes.
Okay, so state your name and your Milwaukie neighborhood for the record.
Yeah, I'm Lisa Graytrick. I'm an architectural historian and historic preservation professional. I live in the Linwood neighborhood. I'm speaking today to urge the council to prioritize historic preservation work in city planning. I believe that our citywide survey is outdated, and there's many resources associated with underrepresented groups and those dating to the mid-20th century that have been ignored or simply need more research to better understand their importance. We should be working to understand Milwaukee's full history, not just the founders and the highest examples of architecture. So far, that's all we currently have that's ever been surveyed or ever been documented in a formal manner, with multiple of those buildings having been torn down and no update to the inventory. I know this because I have looked at every single building in the inventory, every single one from the 1980s. Not only is it outdated, it was a terribly done survey that can't be relied on for any accurate information. We also have no minority stories that are told. I've looked at buildings that have been on tours I've given, where the name of the building is completely different from whom actually constructed it, and it doesn't go very deep. We don't know those stories. And we also don't have much developed on the history of our agricultural past, which is a lot of our minority stories that are really important. If we had more information and worked to gather this information, there are state grants available through the Oregon Main Street program, such as a $200,000 matching grant that was recently given to the city of Tillamook, who used that to create 4 affordable housing units in a historic opera house. They converted the rest of it into office space. Also, a $100,000 award to the City of Independence, where they renovated an old garage into a brewery. So there are large ticket amounts of money that are out there if we have recent information that we can actually utilize to put together goals to go for grants. We need to better know our resources through updating the survey and to ID properties that are worthy of additional resources, planning, and potential adaptive reuse, which is not mutually exclusive to historic preservation. They very much live together. These projects can help better understand and share these underrepresented stories, provide funding for housing, much-needed housing, and commercial and civic projects. One avenue that would open up would be for the city to join the Oregon Main Street Network. Applying is free. It provides free training, opportunity to apply for grants, and all it requires is having an understanding of the buildings on our Main Street and a desire to share a goal for learning. It doesn't require any specific preservation. Prioritizing the inventory and gathering of information and stories should be something that is considered a priority. It has been so long for this city, considering we're the oldest suburb of Portland and we have the most outdated inventory. Knowledge is power. It allows the city to apply for grants, develop housing, and share stories. I want to really emphasize here that historic preservation is not mutually exclusive to ADUs or affordable housing or building housing. They work together, and they work best when they work together. They should always be working together. This includes things like, building affordable housing, promoting ADUs and sustainability. Good examples of this. There's an ADU that was constructed at 11630 27th Avenue, National Register listed building, home. It's a beautiful home that has an ADU that was built on the property. The garage was turned into an ADU back in 2011. That went through the Planning Commission. Really minimal amount of time was invested by the homeowner to get that approved, and now they have additional housing on their existing lot, and the current historic building has also been restored and is generating income. We have underutilized second stories in our downtown office space. We have underutilized office space in our downtown in general. That could be completely adaptively reused. I'm currently working on a National Register nomination for the Pioneer Henry Failing House at 2515 Lake Road. Our goal for that nomination, one of the big reasons we're doing it is because she's planning to turn her basement into an ADU. And by being listed in the National Register, it's going to allow her to get economic advantages. Because it's going to be listed in the National Register, she can get a special assessment taxation, which will lower her taxes when she adds the ADU. So these things are not mutually exclusive, and it shouldn't be seen as one or the other. But without the information, without the knowledge of what we have, what is actually still standing, what is actually important, what are the important stories, we don't have the ability to go after funding. We don't have the ability to target specific properties for additional use, and it just limits our ability to move forward. So I do believe the return on investment is very strong. I think it's a very important investment that allows for multiple goals to be met. And I also want to speak just very specifically to the inventory question. I've done large-scale inventory of dozens of communities. I've surveyed 10,000 buildings in the center of Oahu. I've surveyed the entirety of Aurora, the entirety of Jacksonville, the entirety of lots of communities. There's lots of volunteers. There are a lot of people who are interested in helping with this. It's not $1 million project. There are lots of individuals who are very interested in helping and being involved. But it needs to be seen as a priority through the city as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming out. All right. Anything more on this before we continue it over to the next meeting? No. Okay. I guess we will continue this item over to the next meeting for a decision. And I will once again re-announce what, the next item on the agenda was supposed to be the Design and Landmarks Committee Code update. We have postponed that due to not having the full council here. And the second reading of that code change ordinance will be rescheduled to September 19th. So with that, we have one big thing left on our agenda, which is the equity report. I wonder if we want to take a quick break before we launch into that.
And Council President Nicodemus has his hand raised.
Yes. Council President? Yep.
I've really hit that fatigue wall right now, and I'm wondering if we could postpone the equity report, because I'd really like to make sure that I'm fully present. But
And you don't think watching it after the fact is enough? You want to be able to interact?
yeah,
I'm going to look to the city manager for her thoughts on that.
We can move things around.
We have a really full
big.
meeting.
The 18th is big.
Yeah.
So this means probably October, but we can move things around. Does that work?
Yeah, I guess if that's what we need to do, I hate to put it off. It was, I mean, we've been waiting a while, but,
yeah, I apologize. COVID's really hit me hard again this time around.
yeah. Okay, I mean, if, I guess I felt like people could watch it after the fact, but, yeah, I guess, that doesn't get you the possibility to ask the questions you might want to ask out of what comes out tonight. So I understand that. I think we all have to be prepared for some late nights the next few meetings.
Mr. Massey also has his hand raised.
Okay, Councilor Massey.
Yeah, I just wanted to support Councilor Nicodemus' request. He just wants to listen to the whole thing and be able to interact with it. It's important, and it'd be great if we could get through it. But sometimes things intervene, so I support our fellow councilor in his request.
Okay.
Same here.
Okay.
I think he needs to be a part of that discussion, and he should be able to be 100% present.
Well, and I
Okay.
just wanted to confirm that we have talked to Keene. They will be able to come back and present.
In October.
The other piece of this is we are going to go meet with the Equity Steering Committee here soon. We'll try and bump that before we do the meeting, so you actually have all their feedback before we set the priorities.
Okay.
So this might actually be a good thing in terms of prioritizing from the community first, at least
Okay.
what they're most interested in. Does that work?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Okay. Yep. We have, we probably have some long meetings in October. Okay, so then the only thing left is whether we have any council reports. Any councilor?
No, I will.
Lottie?
I will by next week, 'cause I have the CAB meeting tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't had any meetings since my last round of council reports in mid-August. Late August is pretty slow in terms of the meetings. Councilor Massey or Council President, anything to report?
Yeah, I had no reports. Same here.
Okay. And we don't have a second executive session. We dispensed of the executive session. Okay. Well, with that, we're having one of our, I said 9 o'clock. You guys made liars out of me. But had we done this, I would still say 9 o'clock. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say no. None heard. The meeting is adjourned.